I want to welcome in the former Hewlett-Packard chairman and CEO and current chairman at Good 360, Carly Fiorina. I want to welcome you first, and I want to get to some breaking news. We just got done hearing from the president on the South Lawn. He's headed to New York City to attend the UN. Your thoughts on our actions and activity in Syria last night, and the president's actions specifically?
Well, I think there's plenty to criticize this president for, but in this case, I think he deserves our support, honestly. I think he's done the right thing.
How do you get it
Syria.
Right?
Well, he got it right because he executed on his words when he said there will be no safe haven. He got it right in the sense that Arab nations joined us in these bombing strikes.
I think
very, very important.
Carly, that's a great point, because I think that's what's taking everyone by surprise. While the markets aren't taken by surprise the fact that we are bombing in Syria and bombing ISIS and now the Khorasan group, what did take a few by surprise, and KT started out at the top of the first hour saying that the Arab nations have joined and are on board. Qatar, UAE, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, 40 nations are now back in this fight in Syria.
Yeah, and again, to give the president his due, he has said he was building a coalition. I understand why there was skepticism about it. But in this case, he's got the right people flying sorties last night with us. So good. There are many things that can go wrong here. I agree with many who say he has not been a strong enough leader in the world. On the other hand, last night he did a good thing. All
right. Talk to me about this two economies of the world, Wall Street and Main Street. What do you mean by that?
Well, what I mean by that is, look, the stock market's doing great in large part because there's nowhere else for people to put money. There hasn't been anywhere else to get a return for a very long time. Big companies are doing well because they have global markets to play in and because they know how to deal with all the complexity of regulation and taxation. But Main Street isn't doing well. Small businesses are not doing well.
Why is that?
That's important. Well, because, first of all, we're now destroying more businesses than we're creating for the first time in U.S. history. Small business is important because it creates, small businesses create half the new jobs in this country. They employ more than half of the people.
They're our engine.
They're our engine, and our engine is sputtering. And so that's why our economic growth is lackluster, because we now have this structural problem. Why is Main Street struggling? The community banking system is on his back, thanks to Dodd-Frank, because it's too hard for these small businesses to get through all this complexity.
So you've got this news that hit before we got news of the airstrikes in Syria last night. The news on tax inversions. It's the way some U.S. corporations are trying to trim their tax bill because of our sky-high corporate tax rate in this country. We've been following this story all morning. U.S. lawmakers attempting to make it even harder for U.S. companies to relocate overseas and lower their tax obligations. It was fair play before, and not a lot of companies were even taking advantage of it. Is the Obama administration, are they doing the right thing here? Or, Carly, does this create a more business-friendly environment country?
Well, they're doing exactly the wrong thing. And unfortunately, I think this is why people are so disappointed with the political process and kind of tired of professional politicians. Look, why don't we just solve the problem? Everyone knows what the problem is. The business tax rate is too high. The tax code is too complex. In fact, there's bipartisan agreement on that. There has been bipartisan agreement for several years now, and yet the professional politicians on both sides of the aisle can't get it together to actually solve the problem. So this is a gesture. It's a meaningless gesture to try and punish some companies and make some political hay right before an election. Meanwhile, it doesn't solve the problem.
Doesn't solve the problem. And then Good 360, helping aid workers on the ground in Liberia and Western Africa provide relief for Ebola. You're heavily involved in this effort, and you're actually calling on U.S. businesses to get more involved in helping fight Ebola.
So Good 360, we take inventory from companies and we distribute it to 40,000 charities in this country and now around the world. And in the case of the Ebola crisis, what those poor people on the ground need is rubber gloves, sadly body bags, disinfectant. The children have no toys, nothing to bring them a moment of joy in their day. And so we're calling on the business community here in the U.S. to help us deliver these goods. We're not going through the government on either end. We already have UPS stepping up to do shipments. We have Quest Diagnostics. We've sent in medical supplies, a huge container full. Hasbro is working with us to send in toys. So I'm calling on the business community urgently. Go on our website, good360.org/Ebola. We're getting needs uploaded from people on the ground in West Africa. help us help these people.
That problem does not appear to be going away anytime soon. Huge philanthropic effort on your part.
And it could be solved. We could contain this disease. It's not rocket science to contain it, actually.
Carly, thank you.
Thank you.
Former Hewlett-Packard chairman and CEO and Good 360